Gold Shields brings true stories from law enforcement, the military, true crime authors, and first responders. Experience the dedication, danger, and emotional toll with the heroes themselves. These gripping tales of true crimes, true stories, and true heroes are all here on Gold Shields.
Hey, welcome back to Gold Shields. I'm Dan Murphy, along with my partner in crime, Tom Smith, and we're very excited about today's episode. We can't wait to introduce you to these two ladies who are podcast stars in and of themselves, and they have an amazing case that we're going to talk about today. But first, I just want to give a quick shout out, Tom. I hope you don't mind. Bone Frog, I'm always drinking it. Bone Frog Coffee, the best there is. bonefrog.coffee.com/Gold Shields. Get even a better price on it. Second, carryimpact.com. Get yourself an Impact can of spray. Better than pepper spray. You can use it anywhere. It's the bomb. Tom, who else do you want to give a shout out to? I think this is right up your alley.
We definitely want to bring attention to the National Law Enforcement Officers Hall of Fame. Their induction ceremony on March 22nd, 2024 in Fort Worth, Texas at the Omni Hotel, and I am honored to be part of that. Thanks to my partner, Dan. With the nomination, and it's going to be a special night. So everyone, please go to nationalleohalloffame.com. Donate if you can. They are always looking for sponsors to help finance that event and others. They're a nonprofit group, and Megan Stockberger and Adam Davenport break their butt on their own time with their own money putting these events together, especially the induction ceremony. So give them a hand, nationalleohalloffame.com. Do what you can for them because they are an amazing, amazing organization bringing attention to the heroes of law enforcement throughout the country.
Yep, that's true. And next month, Tom gets inducted. I can't wait to have the honor of inducting him. But today, let's get back to our two amazing guests, Crystal and Renee, the hosts of the True Crime Broads podcast. Now, they were kind enough to have Tom on their show recently. And I'm really not upset about the snub. I've gotten over it. A couple thousand hours of counseling and some vodka, and I feel a lot better about it. I really do.
I had to listen to him. I listened to him cry all night. All night.
Terrible. It brought up so many other fears and insecurities, but I'm okay now. Really, I'm okay. No, thanks. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today, for gracing us with your time. But we're particularly interested in one case, but we want to first learn a little bit about you two. How did you two guys meet? How did you come up with the idea to be the True Crime Broads? Tell us about you guys, Crystal and Renee.
We couldn't be more excited to be here. Thank you. And I'm Crystal, and I grew up in the area where this horrible murder took place. We're talking about the Missy Beavers case. And it took place on this little highway called 287. Spent my teenage years zipping up and down 287 with friends, and it's a very familiar area for me. I grew up in a nearby town. I now live north of Dallas, so I'm about an hour away from there. Renee and we met in the Missy Beavers Facebook groups. We were both equally obsessed with the case and taking it to a whole nother level. Missy's kids just coincidentally happened to be the same age as my three kids. And just hearing about it on the news that morning, that this poor woman walked into a church to teach an exercise class, of all things, to make some extra money for her family, and she gets killed right as she arrives, and by someone wearing that weird outfit that was waiting for her in the dark. I mean, that's straight out of a horror movie. And for women, just walking into an empty building is scary enough. I can't even imagine being in the pitch dark and then coming across that creature and then getting killed. So I was attracted to the case for, being from the area and having the same age kids as Missy. Renee's connection is even more close.
My name is Renee, and I actually live in Ellis County. I grew up in Red Oak, which is a city just outside of DeSoto, where Crystal is from. And I now live in Waxahachie, which is this one city south, and Midlothian is the city next to that. So that kind of gives you an idea how close we are. I actually used to work with Missy back in 2014 and 2015, 2013, 2014. We worked together for a company called Vault Denim, and we sold, it was like jeans. So we had jean parties, things like that. And that's how I met her. So for an entire year, I spent going over to her house about twice a week to, get the jeans and get the inventory, that kind of thing. And so we talked often, and that's how I knew her. So of course, when I heard the news, I was, in shock, like what is going on? Like what happened? Like she was pretty much our age. She's like 1 year younger, right, Crystal? Like she's 1 year younger.
Just a few months younger.
Yeah, she's not, pretty much the same age. And so it was a shocker to us. And like Crystal said, we met in the groups and we started talking and just, formed a friendship. And then we decided that because it seemed like the case was kind of getting quiet, there was nobody really talking about it. We thought, why don't we start a podcast so that we can, try to help keep this thing going?
Yeah. And that was after we'd been talking for years, actually. Yeah. Because like Renee said, the media just sort of dropped it. It was international news when it happened. And you had people like Gayle King reporting on it. It was on all the big shows. And then just it petered out to the point where only the local media would mention it on the anniversary of the murder. And even then, that got shaky the last few years where they weren't even doing that. So yes, in 2020, so Missy's death was in 2016. In February of 2020, we started the podcast.
So you got 4 years now under your belt.
Yes.
4 years.
We had done so much research and we had new people coming into the groups, coming to the case, asking us questions. And we're trying to get everybody in private messages up to date. And that's kind of what made us say, we should do a podcast. We have all this research, we have all this information, and people can just tune in and catch up because it's just a lot.
Yeah. That's a great, what a mission and what a calling to do that and the foresight to do that. And it's great that we have these platforms now that we're able to do this. And your show is so incredibly popular that people tuning in to hear more about this case. So what we want to do, we're gonna break it down a little bit in the framework of two detectives, talking with you guys about this. So let's go kind of step by step. Let's start on April 18th, 2016 with the Rainstorm and her having to move her class inside, and then these bizarre events happen from the video, and then the video of the car later on that was found. Let's start with the day and take us through what what you found out, and then we'll just build on that.
Okay, so on April 18th, it was approximately 5 a.m. when there were 2 911 calls made from campers that were in Missy's class that came into the building and found her dead. I'm sure at the time they didn't know for sure she was deceased, but they called 911. They came, and quickly after that, they realized that she was gone, and that something had happened. So when she was doing her classes, she would post on social media. She would post on her page, and then I think there was like a group for the Camp Gladiator fitness class, and they would post on there, we're going to have our classes at this time. Well, she knew that the upcoming storm was coming, so she said, if it's raining, we're still training. So there was a rule that she had. They did all of these Camp Gladiator fitness classes were outside. That was kind of the premise behind Camp Gladiator, done in parking lots, that kind of thing. So they had decided, she had a agreement with the church. She had them in different places, but this particular one was on Monday morning, was at the church. And she had an agreement with them that she would do it under the awning. And then if the weather was really bad, like cold and raining, then they would do it inside. So she had a key. So she was unloading her truck when she got there, taking things inside to get it all set up for everybody. And quickly she was met by this person on surveillance, person dressed from head to toe in what looks like SWAT gear, and everybody was come into the building and found her dead.
Yes, and I think that when her attendees came and they started thinking, why is Missy not answering the door? This isn't like her. They saw her truck. They saw that her truck doors were wide open. Her purse is still in there. Some of the equipment was already inside. They couldn't get in, and they were just wondering what was going on. And so her Camp Gladiator attendees started trying to get in, and they eventually called 911. Someone did show up that knew how to get in, and it's just horrifying. And then later on, they didn't know at first, I'm sure, that there had been an intruder or anything like that. But when they got in and saw that she was dead, then later on the news, just a couple hours later, the news let out this video of the perpetrator wandering the halls before she arrived, wearing this police riot gear or tactical gear, whatever that is, wandering the hallways, just waiting for her to get there, I guess. It's just the strangest thing. And so it was terrifying to see that video because that person looks kind of calm. What do you think about that, Dan and Tom? I mean, they don't look all that bothered, do they?
It's a fascinating video. It's very interesting. And Tom and I will probably unwrap a lot of things today that are our own observations and things. But I just wanted to get back to a couple of foundational things. Obviously, every homicide, the crime scene is of vital importance to preserve that, keep the integrity and preserve all the evidence. So that's a vital function. And then the second most important thing to do, if you haven't got a clear suspect, you've got to know your victim. So what do we know about Missy Bevers and her life, who she was, and what was going on in it leading up to this time?
Well, I mean, she was a mom of 3, a very busy mom. She was, she would teach this Camp Gladiator class while her children, the early one, while her children were still sleeping. And then she would go home, wake them up, get them breakfast, take them to school. And that was her routine. Very sad to think that she didn't get to do that morning. And her children had to find out that their mother had been murdered. It's just horrible. But Missy is a person. Now, Renee could speak to this better than I can because she knew her. But I'll just say that everyone that we've talked to who knew her absolutely loved her. There are rumors that there were affairs in the marriage. I feel bad talking about that because Missy's not here to defend herself. But apparently there was one that's been proven that we've seen in the public record search warrants that's been referred to. But, hard to say, really hard to say on that stuff.
Yeah, Missy was a very kind person. And I do agree that everyone seemed to love her. She was very passionate about what she did, and she was very helpful and very humble about it, because there was a couple of times where he talked about, weight loss and getting fit and that kind of thing. And she was always like, girl, no, look at me. This is what I used to look like, and look at me now. She said it takes, time to get there, and let me help you, that kind of thing. She was a really great person.
It's amazing because while you were talking, I was writing a note down, and my note was how long after the crime scene did the video get out, and that troubling problem number one. There's no way the police did what they had to do first before releasing that video. That video should have never been released in the time that it was.
Renee, am I correct? I remember wandering through my family room at 9:00 in the morning and seeing the video, and it said Midlothian, Texas, and I was like, what? And then, is that what you remember?
Yeah, they released an 8-second video right away, and then they released a 20-second video, and then they completed it by doing a 2-minute and 20-second video. And all 3 of those are on their YouTube channel, the Midlothian Police, YouTube. And I don't remember the timelines of the other 2, but it wasn't long after. And of course, they're dated.
Now, I saw it at 9 a.m., but I may have seen a later broadcast. Did they show it before 9?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I just know that I wandered through the family room at 9 and saw that on the screen, and I just stopped and watched it. And I said, wow, that's Creekside Church on 287. It got my attention being from that area. So she was killed about 4:20 a.m., and they had it on TV 9:00 for sure. I don't know if it was on before that.
Tom
That was when I noticed.
We find that hard to fathom why they would do that. Typically, a video is going to be released as an appeal to the public for assistance in an investigation. Help us to identify the following person. But you don't want to do that until you've taken your own steps, because you don't want to scare them away if they're lingering in the area. And there's a million reasons why you don't want to do that right away. You can't show your hand. And so watching that video and watching this individual who I think it's originally we tend to think when it's a homicide, it's a guy, but I think there's all kinds of people who think that it might be a woman. And I remain open to the possibility it could be either. But in watching that, Tom and I, we talked a couple of things first. One of the things we talked about was this didn't look to me like somebody who was laying in wait to do a murder. This looked to me like somebody who was trying to break into various places within the church to steal things and happened upon somebody who caught them. Could be wrong, but that's what our initial intake was, of that was. We looked at it like, why would they be trying to pry things open to make it look like a burglary? Well, I mean, if you got a dead body, it's a homicide. So why are you trying to make it look like a burglary, like it went bad? To try to draw attention away? That's because you have a personal relationship? Or is it possible that there really just wasn't that much of value this person wanted to take? And why would you dress like a cop? There's so many things, but not to get too far ahead, but we tend to think, you follow the documentable evidence. That person was wearing a uniform. Where did that uniform come from? Does it belong to a specific agency in the area? Is there small writing? Does it say bail enforcement officer on it somewhere or security other than police? Is there anything else about it that we can find out? Were there searches done of local police equipment stores? Were there searches done of the records of online purchasing that mailed to those areas? I don't know how in-depth the police went, and I'm not looking to second guess. I'm just saying these are things that jumped out to Tom and I. And Tom, you can jump in too, but we had quite a bit of dialogue about the uniform.
I can throw one thing in here. We have seen that they've done search warrants on people who would have had these uniforms in their lives already. They wouldn't have had to go seek them out somewhere. There have been a couple of suspects who it would have probably been in their closet or their close relative's closet.
Yeah, looking at that video,
Yeah,
going back to the video, it was, and like Dan said, even, certain killers who are killers aren't that calm. If they're there to perform a murder and actually have the plan to kill someone, you're hyped. You probably didn't sleep. You're all over the place thinking of probably 10 different things. To just methodically cruise around the building, pull a hammer out of your pocket, which is in the tactical pants that they have, to open a door. It's very odd. And I'm in the agreement with Dan with something else, getting surprised. That was my first thing, which she popped up and surprised him, and he just reacted. And I'm just saying he, for the sake of conversation, it could be she as well. But like we had said when we spoke on your show, I would key everything I had on that uniform. I would zoom in, zoom out, lighting, look for a tag, look for something on the boot, anything of an identifiable, weirdness or something that you can use is on there. It's just a matter of finding it. And it gets tedious. It gets aggravating when you're doing something like that because it's so integral. But the smallest little thing can cap it off, and that would have been my complete focus until something else came up.
So everybody leaves a trail. This is 2016 America. That person left a trail that brought them there, and then a trail afterwards. But there are other businesses in the area that I'm not sure if they checked all the surveillance video of, gas stations, convenience store, whatever's open in the middle of the night, early morning, or even what's not, to see if somebody pulled into the parking lot and sat there to buy some time. I understand somebody did that. There was a car that did that, but people leave a trail. They leave a purchase trail. They leave a cell phone trail. They leave all kinds of trails when they're out there. And that's what law enforcement uses now. It's not the old days. There's all kinds of ways to figure out where you were and who you were in a given area. So I have to wonder how much of that was done. And if it was done and it was exhausted, if this was premeditated, if this person went there to kill and they were smart enough to do certain things, make it look like a burglary, etc., Why would they put themselves in a position where they're doing it on camera? Because they would know there's cameras there. What was the story with the cameras in the exterior not working that day? I don't know. Were they not working on purpose? Was there only one exterior camera and it was just burnt out? What was the issue? But
Yeah, there was just one exterior camera, and apparently they hadn't had it repaired yet, and I guess they just hadn't seen it as a huge priority. Probably hadn't had a lot of problems at the church and just didn't put it top of the list of things to fix, I guess. But that's the story we heard, is there was one camera and it just happened to
Right.
not be working.
And the other thing that comes up, it's been mentioned that nothing was taken from her, and a couple of times that got keyed on. And I'm like, all right, if again, it was a surprise reaction killer, I don't want to get caught. You're not taking, you're going to panic because this is probably not a pro. He's not a hitman. He's not, contracted to do this, so you're going to do that. Maybe the realization of what happened kicks into your head really quick and you're out of there. So the notion of, well, nothing was taken really didn't surprise me at all. And I didn't think that should be a topic to really key on. I think it was just, the way a homicide happens 90% of the time.
Part of the surveillance footage that was not released to the public, there was a forensic podiatrist, which I was not aware there was such a thing, but apparently there was a forensic podiatrist who was looking at the walk, and he was on a show, and he told about the part of the video that we haven't seen that he did see. And he said that when Missy is walking in, the MPD did the right thing. They said, we're not going to show any footage of Missy to the public out of, respect for her family. But this guy did see it. And he said Missy walks in and you see her jerk her head. So she heard something. So we don't know if the perpetrator squeaked his shoe, if he called out to her, or we don't know. She hears something because it's obvious the way she jerks her head. She walks down the hallway and bam, she gets shot. We don't see her getting shot on camera, thank goodness. But that's the last thing he saw was her moving down the hallway, and that perpetrator was down at the end of that hallway, and she was shot. And we've heard rumors that she was bludgeoned after she was shot, but we can't prove that. But it just seems really odd the way this person was lollygagging around. But the minute Missy gets there, they either beckoned her or she heard something that an accidental sound they made, and then they shot her and ran out of there. Just so strange.
And here's the thing that I want to make a point to say too about the perpetrator walking through the church. They walk around for 20, maybe 30 minutes and really do nothing. I mean, they didn't. They're. I don't know why anybody would pick a church to steal from, but let's just, for the sake of this conversation, say that that's what they wanted to do. They're not even trying to take musical equipment, and if they're just there to vandalize because they're bored and crazy or whatever, they're not vandalizing, they're not doing any of those things. So that's the reason that now I'm not an expert, obviously. This is just my own opinion, but I just don't understand why they would walk around for 30 minutes and not do any of the things they came to do.
Well, here's just popped into my head. Don't, and this is one thing we did in cases. Don't take for granted it's a normal thinking person. If they're off their rocker and
That's true.
completely nuts,
It's true.
walking around and
Yeah.
breaking things and breaking in it is just part of, the personality they have. And that was the other part. Like, don't take for granted it's a sane thinking person. If something is emotionally wrong with them,
Yeah.
weird acts like that are normal.
Oh, no.
Well, and there is one person of interest who is known to do crystal meth and cocaine frequently, and that might, if it is that person, that might help explain why they're walking around so spry at 4 a.m.
Let's talk again a second about why this individual would be in the church wearing that uniform. What are the possible reasons that would bring them there? Now, if you were somebody that was hired or you yourself wanted to go kill Missy, why would you go through the trouble of procuring a uniform and putting it on and getting there a half an hour early to leave a trail of witnesses that might see you dressed. It could
Conceal
conceal
your
your
identity?
identity, but then again, I mean, well, first of all, I'd like to think that it was absolutely clear that there were no members of law enforcement involved in this, and that nobody's family borrowed a uniform from their closet. Now, when I watched that, it didn't appear to me that this uniform looked old and beaten up. What I saw looked like it was newer, and when I saw the person walking, it struck me as somebody who was either having some issues with their hips or back or legs, or they're not used to wearing a duty rig. They're not used to wearing that equipment. You'll see rookie cops getting used to wearing it, and then you see officers who've got some more time on, they walk normally because they're used to wearing that weight on their hips. So it might be somebody who
Makes
it's
sense,
brand
yeah.
new to. If it was purchased just for this, or if it's part of something that they have been doing, were there other burglaries in the area? Were other churches ever, just a list of questions I don't know the answer to. Were there other burglaries in the area? Were there any other impersonation situations that had gone on in the area? Were there any security companies that had unaccounted people in the area that, he works the midnight, but he was off his shift, off his post or something? Is there any other explanation that's plausible as to why that person was there and legitimately would be wearing that uniform? And once you've eliminated that, then you're talking to this person, went through the whatever it was to get that uniform, put that uniform on, put themselves in that place. Looking at Missy's life, again, you cannot be exhaustive enough in looking at your victim's life and the friends of friends and the people who you least expect but have something to do with knowing where she's going to be on that morning at 5 o'clock teaching a class.
Well, and she, like Renee said, she posted it publicly on Facebook because she wanted people to attend the class. So if you wanted to get Missy alone in the dark, that would be the place to do it with no family around, because her husband and kids would be at home. So people knew that she got there early because she's required to. Camp Gladiator, we talked to the head of Camp Gladiator for that region, and she said that they're required to be there an hour early, but the instructors tend to wander in more like 45 minutes early. So not sure how widespread that rule was known, but I think that most people that attended the class knew that Missy had been there for a while when they got there. And Missy had gotten some strange messages too. I wanted to not forget to mention, she was getting some what they called creepy and strange messages on LinkedIn. She showed it to a friend. The friend and her both agreed that they didn't recognize this guy, but or his name or anything, but they never gave the public the content of those messages, but it was a few days before she was killed. She got several of them, and they were quote unquote creepy and strange, as all the Midlothian police would say about it. That friend that Missy had showed them to went straight to police when she found out Missy was killed and said, "You need to know about these messages."
Was the sender ever identified that you know of?
Not that they haven't released that, if they were able to identify it. We heard they were having some trouble tracing it through LinkedIn.
I was going to say, it's not uncommon for attractive women, and she seems like she was an attractive woman who was in great shape, took care of herself, to have admirers. And sometimes people who just look at her and appreciate her for, being an attractive woman, bleed over into stalkers, bleed over to people who become obsessed with them, who may have never had any personal contact with her, but see her around and fixate on her. This goes to the heart of the mental issue thing, the mental illness case. This could be an obsessive person who is obsessed with her and wanted to be near her, realized would never have her, and decided that, if I can't have you, nobody will. That's just one theory. I've done a lot of work in the area of stalking and harassment, threatening and disturbing behavior, and this could be that. So those LinkedIn messages could be really important in the investigation. This person, a lot of people are very quiet about it. A lot of people in America right now being stalked who have no idea that the person is fixated on them.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, very scary.
I had something happen when I was younger, and I didn't even know I was on this dude's radar until he was at my house.
We did a whole episode on that.
Yeah, we did.
Me and her and our
Yeah,
true crime
it's
stories.
so scary and true.
There's so many. I mean, there's so many angles to work this. One of the things I watched last night, and I actually texted the two of you last night, the SWFA Outdoors building with the car about an hour before the killing took place. Completely bizarre. I mean, I watched the entire video of the car going around the building, and then I think I found another one with another report on it. And it seems to me, again, not playing Monday morning quarterback, but just kind of our look at it. There seemed to be a lot on those videos that you could key on with ID in that car, or trying to zoom in with different lighting and different stuff that is way above my technology, realm. Because at one point, when it stops for probably about 10 minutes or so, it's sitting under a light, and the license plate is lit up. There's nothing broken on the car, that's going to not be able to identify a part of it. Nothing's broke. The lights on the license plate are on. The brake lights are on. The headlights, the interior. You see the radio on, inside the car. That was, I mean, again, keying on certain things. The uniform, that car. You have to try to ID that person some way or another. And like Dan said before, we had cases that, and again, think about, we were right on the edge of technology with cameras and stuff, and not having cameras. And, when we were doing these cases in the city, to track the car. All right, it made a left. What's the next building? Go check their cameras. What's the next building after that? Go check their cameras. And you end up just piecing a route together to try to identify that car, see a better angle, a better lighting. Maybe the sun's starting to come up when you get to the fifth store that has a camera system. Those are the gumshoe kind of detective work that sometimes needs to be done, and not relying solely on technology, but getting out there and piecing it together. And it can be daunting. We did one of those in the city, and imagine Manhattan. We had to do that from 42nd Street and 8th Avenue. Danny, you remember when we had the bombing, the guy threw the grenade at the Armed Forces recruiting station on the bicycle. We tracked him from Times Square all the way to the West Side Highway, just piecing stores together. And it took 2 or 3 days to do it, but sometimes that's what has to be done.
So I have another direction that this case could possibly benefit, or maybe it has in some way from. Anytime you get a real head scratcher like this, you think to yourself, all right, what am I dealing with perp-wise? If we don't know, we would just assume he's a perp. A perp to us is just somebody who's a criminal. What do criminals do? They know each other and they talk. So when you have the opportunity, you want to debrief everybody that's arrested in and around Midlothian forever. Do you know anything about this case? Because when you got somebody and they're under arrest and they're sitting in a police station, and you've got them for a reasonably serious charge, or they're on parole and they're going back to prison, they want to help themselves. And there's no honor among thieves. So you want to talk to these people and find out, debrief them. We used to do that all the time. We need information on this murder, that homicide that happened last night in the precinct. Anybody that gets arrested, talk to them. Find out who knows what. Squeeze people if you have to, but just bring them in and say, hey, we need help with this. I'd love to help you, but I need help. And if he's a burglar and he just got startled, that's one thing. He's probably not a murderer. Burglars are not, they're not street robbers. Street robbers are in your face. Burglars want to do it quiet like cats and get out. These are not the kind of people that are comfortable with an in-person crime. And if that's the case, look and see who killed himself in the past couple of years around there, because it ate him alive. Look and see who's in prison for burglary charges in the state of Texas or nearby surrounding states who had any association or affiliation with Midlothian. Talk to existing informants and develop informants. Who knows what? Criminals know the street. They know what they hear. And when people get into prison, if they get into prison, if you've done something, well, first of all, they will brag about things that they've done because they want to appear tough. They want to appear hardcore in prison. And there's a lot of prison, snitches that come forward to get a break because of that vulnerability. I'm sitting in the jail cell. Nobody knows me. I got to let them know who I am. I'm a tough guy. So there's a chance that this person has talked about it with somebody.
One of the things that we are very blessed to have in this case is Crime Stoppers of Ellis County was able to make the playing cards that you distribute in the jails, and they've been done. We have I don't know how many they distributed, but they made them for us, and we were able to get them in the area all around.
Missy's case on them.
Yes, it has Missy's case on it, and who to contact and all that. So that is possibility. I don't know if anything's ever come of it. Obviously, we will never know, but it is there. So
yeah, and we don't know if they're debriefing people that come in. That's interesting too. But then again, Ellis County is a place where there's not a lot of murders. They're not picking up guys for homicide. They might be picking up people for petty crimes, but I have a question for both of you. What are your thoughts on the perpetrator walking around the church for about a half an hour and not actually taking anything? We've been really wondering about that because, we've gone back and forth on, is this a burglar who is interrupted, or is this someone just burning off energy waiting to kill Missy? They kind of peek in a couple of doors and they kind of fiddle with some door handles, but you don't really see them. They're not taking things. What do you think about that?
There was nothing to take. Maybe, maybe they were there. Maybe they have a special set of things they're looking to take and just couldn't find any. He's looking, he's opening every door. He's breaking a window. He's going in, different hallways. Maybe, hey, I wanted a computer. My goal tonight is to steal a computer. And he looked for one, couldn't find one. It could be very simple as that. Sometimes when you do these cases, you try not to make it so broad, make it like simple. It could be, he was looking for a cell phone that someone left. Something really simple, but he just didn't find what he wanted. And that could very well be the case. And then maybe get into the mental part. Maybe ticked off, annoyed that nothing was in there. I can't get what I want. And then Missy shows up and he takes that anger out on her. The one question I wanted to ask you was the gun ever identified?
No. The perpetrator took the gun with them that they used on Missy. Missy's gun, she did carry. Missy's gun was still in her truck with her iPad, iPhone, and purse.
And tools were left at the scene as well, and that they carried around with them.
Yeah, like a hammer and stuff.
Yeah, there was. They said tools, so we don't know what else besides the hammer was. Maybe the crowbar. I don't know.
But you can see the perpetrator on the video. At one point, you can make out they're holding a hammer. So that's the only one we're definitely sure.
Well, and the crowbar.
Well, was there an autopsy done in the round that was shot at her or recovered to identify what kind of gun it was used?
The autopsy, as you could probably imagine, the report is sealed and has been since day one. So we're not sure about that. And we've heard different rumors about the type of gun, and it was apparently a revolver, but we can't prove any of that.
We had someone on our podcast, though, that said it was their belief that it was recovered because that's how they determined to bring in the ATF dog. Remember, what was his name? I forgot the dog's name. But anyway, they came looking for the residue, and
they were looking for shell casing. Yeah, the ATF. So she was killed early Monday morning. On Wednesday afternoon, they brought down the ATF with a dog that sniffed the whole premises of the church, inside, outside. And we heard that no shell casings were found from that. And but yeah, our understanding is the gun still has not been found. But apparently they figured out, I guess, through the autopsy that she had been shot.
It was Miriam McCullough. That's who it was.
Oh, our guest?
Yes.
So anyway, yeah. So they think that because, this is horrible to say, but she was apparently bludgeoned with we think with the hammer and shot. It's very confusing because MPD always said that she died from puncture wounds to the head and chest. We found out through public records that she was shot. So the police were trying to keep that as holdback evidence, I guess, but it got out all over the place, So we started talking. After we realized how widespread that was, we stopped trying to hide it on our podcast because everyone knows that she was shot at this point because it's been in the records and the Facebook groups and anyone following the case at this point. News outlets have even said it before. So we finally just decided to go along with that. So it's just really confusing case. It's just hard to believe that this poor woman could walk into a church to teach an exercise class and get completely attacked out of nowhere by someone wearing such a strange outfit too. I mean, I've never heard of anyone going to rob a place dressed in police tactical gear. And I've never heard of anyone getting murdered by someone pretending to be a police officer wearing tactical gear. It's very strange. What do you think of the outfit? Do you think it's riot gear, tactical gears? What do you think?
It could just be a regular uniform that they put a helmet on top of. I saw a duty jacket. It looks like a pair of BDU pants, and it's not too much out of the norm. I wouldn't say it's necessarily riot gear per se, but helmets are not uncommon in police agencies, and it might be bits and pieces of different agencies or something. It's hard to tell whether it's a legit uniform from one agency or it's just a bunch of stuff that says police that you can get online. Yeah,
Right,
now
just
if
kinda
you're going to dress
piecemeal
up
together.
like a cop to do something, the chances are good you're going to do it because you want to fool somebody long enough to get what you want to get done. Whether it be an impersonation robbery. In this case, if the person was going in there to do burglaries, let's say, if anybody saw them coming and going, that's just the security, that's just the police. But it is kind of weird. And again, we spend a lot of time thinking about what a rational person might do and why. This might be a completely irrational person who has no verifiable rhyme or reason as to why they did it. It just sounded like a great idea to them. I'm going to dress up like a cop and do this. It's like, why would you dress up like because I want to? Who knows? We can't discount that. We can't spend too much time thinking we're going to find a real reason that's going to make sense to us. But to wear that, you have to, we don't know exactly what happened, and it would be great if the cameras covered it. When she turned her head and went down the hallway, that confrontation with him or her, with the killer. What was said, was there a recognition? I know this person. This person knows me. This person now knows who I am. It's hard to say. We don't know. We can only speculate, which again goes back to the heart of knowing everything you can know about Missy and who's in her world and who wants to be in her world, who desires to be in her world, who used to be in her world. It's the husband, I'm sure, was checked out 8 ways to Sunday. That's the most logical person to look at. Whenever there's a woman killed, they always look at the husband. Whenever there's a husband killed at home, they always look at the wife. I mean, it's the natural, because homicide is a crime of relationship. By and large, the vast majority of people who are killed by people they know. And it's usually money, love, some sort of business differences or whatever, jealousy, a wide variety of reasons, but it's a relationship. In this case, to hang around there if I was going in to break into that church, I don't know that I'd be there for a half an hour, unless I had a screw loose and I was just a nut. I mean, honestly, people break in to do the craziest things,
Like what?
People break in and fall asleep and get found by the police.
Well, and another part that's strange is that it was pouring down rain. It wasn't sprinkling. It wasn't just kind of raining. It was a full-on rainstorm.
Yeah,
I remember it waking me up.
I do remember that.
And so this person really wanted to be there, whoever it was, because they drove in pounding rain. They broke into the church in pounding rain, wearing that getup. So they really wanted to be there, whatever the reason was.
And sometimes some perps have especially ones who have a screw loose. They have a schedule. I'm doing this on Monday. It doesn't matter if there's a blizzard, rain, whatever. This is the day I'm doing that. And they get so fixated on it, no matter what's going on, that's what they're going to do. One of the things that Dan and I had talked about last night or earlier was, when you hit these brick walls as two detectives, we both have done this. When you hit brick walls in investigations, and again, we actually don't know if they hit a brick wall. They're not talking, so we're just having a conversation right now. But when Dan and I would run cases that you hit a brick wall and you really don't have anywhere to go, that's where you need to rely on your imagination and thinking outside the box and coming out with just outlandish things that at the time when you're sitting in a squad room make no sense, but you just go check it anyway because you never know. It could be anything. You know, who sold a bottle of water to someone at 4:00 in the morning at a gas station? You know, just all things like that and you hope they did that. And we don't know if they did. Again, we're just having a conversation. But those are things that we used to do. Like we'd sit down and, okay, what can we come up with? And that's where, that's where experience comes in. And I'm not throwing a dart at them, but it's hard to run a homicide investigation when you have one every decade. It's hard to run a case where those people, even the people who maybe were on the scene or handled that investigation, are gone now. So now you have no one with any homicide experience.
So let me just comment quickly about this person goes into the church. Let's say, for example, the goal was to kill Missy, whether it be a contract, a personal vendetta, unrequited love, whatever it is. I'm going there, I'm going to kill Missy. Okay. I know that she runs a exercise class in the parking lot, and I either have insider information from online because I've been stalking her, whatever, that she's going to be inside. Okay. This occurs at, what was it, 4:20 a.m.?
Yes, we think we think she was killed about 4:20.
And they got into the church around 3:50.
Yeah, they first showed up on the surveillance camera at 3:50, and she walked in around 4:18 and got killed pretty much in the
So
next
if I
couple
do
minutes.
that and I know about her, I know about what's going on, I know that she has a 5:00 class. And I know that I have a period of time that I can do this and get away with it and get out of here. But I also know she's going to be discovered in minutes. Why would I do it there? Again, thinking as though I'm a rational person. Why would I dress like a police officer and bring attention to myself? Now, if I wear regular street clothes and I'm seen walking out of a building like I own the place, nobody looks at you twice. But they see a cop. It's like, what's going on? Why is there a cop going out of that building? It takes more focus. Oh, it puts focus on you, is what I'm saying. Secondly, if I was gonna kill her, unless there was no other place to do it, why would I do it in a place where her body's going to get discovered very quickly? There's cameras around. I'm on the camera, and I'm dressed in a way to stand out. It's, again, if it's a rational person, why, right?
And you know what? Just to go on that also, Dan and ladies, you're taking for granted she's going to be alone. You don't know if she picked one of her students up and drove them in. Now you're sitting there waiting to maybe do something. There could be 2 or 3 people there. Someone got there early that day, and was going to give her a hand. They know she carries a lot of equipment in. Let me get there early and help Missy out. You take it for granted she's going to be alone. And again, the rational part.
I hate to say this, but the perp was very lucky that morning that there weren't witnesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they were able to. It was thought that the perp entered the back of the church, which is the exact opposite of where Missy comes in. It's thought that they parked in the back, came in the back, and left out the back. 287, is the highway that the church faces where she pulled up, and you could see Missy coming and going. People could, but the back entrance is completely closed off.
Yeah, it's hidden from, yeah, you can't see it. When she was pulling in, she would have never seen them. And then they would have had easy access to go right down the driveway and right down the highway quickly.
We've
They wouldn't have
identified
even
the
had
entry
to
and
pass her.
egress of this person, where they came in. Was it a forced entry? Do we know that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
They had to break in. They broke glass, reached
Which
in, and
eliminates
unlocked
anybody
it.
who has any real relationship with that church or knowledge of the building, because they wouldn't have had to do that. They would have found a workaround. They would have had a key or something like that. So that takes that off the table. And the fact that they walked around for a half an hour looking into things also is an indication they don't know where things are, because if you know a building and you're there to steal something, you go right to it. So that's an interesting piece of that as well. So you don't want to be seen. You're hiding in the back. It's odd. It's like a dichotomy. I don't want to be seen. I'm going to hide the back, yet I'll dress like a cop. And what does it matter what you're wearing when you kill somebody? I mean, they're not going to tell. It's like, it's odd.
Yeah. And you have to wonder, did they not know there was cameras, or did they have on that getup for the cameras?
It seems like they were
It's
trying to
weird.
conceal who they were because of the nature of, like, why would you wear the full, there's no point. There's nobody around. What do you got a helmet on for? It's just, the whole thing is odd. It doesn't strike me as the way that this person walked around. What I saw in the video doesn't strike me as a cop or anybody who's ever worn that kind of uniform on a regular basis. It looks new. It looks like they're wearing somebody else's clothes.
One of the persons of interest is an off-balance female, and she would have had access to cop shoes, and they would have been her husband's or her dad's or her best friend's husband's. They were all police officers. And does it look to you like maybe this could be a woman who is walking in shoes that are just way too big? Because that's been one. That's been one
possible.
theory. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said is exactly the way you go about an investigation that is cold. You just start coming up, okay, what about that? What about this? I mean, what you just brought up is a great, great point. Now, what happened, do you know, was anything done with that subject, with that suspect, I should say, the woman? Was anything developed about that?
Yes, there has, and there's been quite a few. It wasn't just her. There's been other people they looked at pretty closely with search warrants and whatnot. And yes, they have that the woman I'm referring to actually sent us a message on our True Crime Broads account. Yeah, so she let us know that.
Yeah, it was an interesting message.
Yeah.
Stop stalking me. And we were like, we're not stalking anybody.
That was so funny because we had, at that point in time, we had never mentioned her on our show. We had never even alluded to her. And we get this message. This is back in 2021. I look at my phone, and we had talked about her in private, of course, because we'd seen search warrants and whatnot. And she popped up and it said, "Stop stalking me." And she capitalized "stop stalking" and "me" as though they were the beginning of a sentence, each word. And immediately I screenshot it and I wrote her back and I said, "Hi," I said, "do we know each other?" And she had already blocked us. So we didn't get to talk to her. I would have loved to have talked to her. But of course, I called Renee immediately, said, "You're not going to believe who just messaged us on True Crime Broads." So there's been some weirdness. Of course, we can't prove it was her or anyone else.
So
but
a couple
we
of
have our
generic thoughts
hunches.
about cold case investigations. First, cold case squads are formed because regular precinct or small town detective squads, for the most part, can tend to get swamped in the day-to-day. And you don't have the time to give to these kind of cases unless you're dedicated to working them. And it takes a different perspective. Different eyes on a case always help. The best cases are done by committee. You sit around a precinct detective squad and you grab a cup of coffee and you go over a case and what do you guys think? What do you girls think? What do you got? What should I do? Those result often in new things being found in a case because it's new insights, and which is why somebody different takes the case folder, sits down, parses it out, looks at it, and redoes things. You don't want to just say, 7 years ago, we sat down and we talked to the guy that runs the 24-hour convenience store across the street, and he gave us a statement and we're good. Revisit them. And a lot of times people in investigations get cleared. He's been cleared. He's fine. Let's take a look at that again. Maybe not so quick. Sometimes it isn't necessarily the case what they told you. You checked it out with somebody. They may have misspoke. There's a lot of areas to go back and do it again. One of the things in the NYPD Chief Animal always stressed was relentless follow-up, going back again. If you had a canvas, let's say, for example, canvassing, we know in a homicide, right? Talk to anybody who could have possibly seen anything in the area. How well was that done? Do it again, and then do it again. Because if there's an apartment building with 8 apartments and you got to 6 of them, you got to hit those other 2. Well, I didn't get a chance. Go back and hit them. You never know who saw something. And so you want to go over and over and over again to make sure you didn't miss anything the first time around. Not to take anything away from the investigators. It's just, that's the nature of the beast. Different eyes on these cases usually can be helpful.
Yes,
And
that
you know
sounds
what?
great.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
they've
I'm sorry.
changed-
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say they've actually changed the ones in charge of this case a couple of different times.
They did bring in someone with some homicide experience from nearby Arlington PD, and he's been on MPD now working this case since 2021.
Mhm.
Well, I
So
can tell
that's
you,
good.
Tom and I and anybody else who's ever caught a case will tell you that there's an investigator sort of pride. We take pride in our cases, and we feel strongly that the findings that we find are the findings, and that's it. And sometimes we have to get off our high horse and realize that we can make mistakes or we can overlook things. So that's why it has to be, if you have to be an investigator who's willing to take advice, criticism, and help. You can't act as though it's my case, I know what I'm talking about, that's it. No, it's your case, you know what you're talking about, but we all can learn and we all can take help. And especially in a case like this.
So I get what happens. What happens in a case where it does appear that maybe they don't want any more help? Do it just
It depends.
peters out
It
over time?
depends. If whoever is in charge of that department or in charge of that investigative branch of the department is okay with that, then that's the way it's going to sit. Or if they're not okay with it, then they'll make sure that other people get involved in the case. Tom, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna exactly say that. It depends on the leadership. It depends on their tempo. It depends on their attitude. Not throwing it at anybody, but I would, Dan and I, we've done it. I would fall down exhausted before I would stop. Because it's not right if you stop. It doesn't feel good. Like Dan said before, we work for the victim, and the victim can't do this investigation. We have to for them. And, you put everything you can into it, and you hope that the right people are handling it. The right leadership is saying, hey, we're not stopping. Who's got an idea? You have that once a week meeting. Even if there's nothing to report, you're still once a week sitting down with everyone going, all right, what do we got? Anyone got an idea? Anyone got a suggestion? Okay, let's go do that. And that's been done a lot. That happens in a squad room, all the time, like Dan said. And, you just hope that they're doing that and not stopping. Stopping would be the worst thing.
Well, and we've had people listen to our show and come to us and say, we know we've got a piece of information we think would be helpful. So we have gotten them in touch with Midlothian Police, and hopefully that's turned into something. But sometimes it's interesting. People aren't comfortable talking to police. I don't know why. Maybe they smoke some weed on the weekends. I don't know what it is, but they are just afraid to talk to police. So they'll come to us because they're not afraid to talk to us, but we still move them over and we can do an introduction. We were lucky enough to get their phone numbers, their direct lines and things like that, so they don't have to call in and wait on hold and get nervous and hang up. So we have been able to pass them directly to investigators, and that's been really great. I wish more people would do that, because MPD has said this is going to be a tip from the public that solves this case.
Yeah, they've actually said that. And it's interesting because I do because I live in Ellis County, so I'm far from Crystal, but I have an in-person meeting and have been doing it for the last 6 months, I guess, where people come and join us and we just talk about the case. And I have learned something new at almost every single meeting that I didn't know, and I've been researching this case since day one. So I can only imagine what it would be like for police to sit down and talk about it.
Here's a perfect example of the way I worked, and I know Danny's going to agree 100% with me. My butt would be at your next meeting. Sitting there, go ahead, everyone talk. I'm just going to sit here and listen. I would be sitting.
Yeah.
No, not me.
Have your butts in, or we wouldn't. We need Midlothian police there, or anybody.
If this was my case, and you're hitting, here's one of those out of the box things I was talking about. When you're hitting a wall, and then you find out that there's a group getting together, throwing around information and ideas and theories and all that, I'd be sitting there taking that all in, because you know what? One might be right, and that's all you need. You need one of those pieces of information to be correct. Just one.
Right. Yeah, and they do share more than they typically would anywhere else.
Here's a consideration.
Yeah, that makes
I don't
sense.
know if they did it, but in New York at times, and it might be a case like this, could be a lot of different cases. You don't know who did it. the funeral and the wake. We at times have sent video surveillance and videoed the external of both events, getting the cars, getting faces of the people going in. Again, remember, it's a crime of relationship homicide for the most part. Unless it would be an outlier to be a total stranger. It's a crime of relationship. So if you act under those premises, who's going to come to the funeral and want to appear normal? Who's going to come to the wake? Who's going to contact the police department to check in on the investigation? Not to offer help, like you guys, we heard this from the public, but to steer it and guide it and inject themselves in it. Who's going to do that? When somebody does that, that's a suspect right there. When somebody shows up to the funeral and overreacts and pretends to be really, really upset when they weren't that close to them or something like that. There's a lot of behavioral things you look at, but these folks, if they're in the life, they're not going to miss the funeral because it's going to make them stand out. They go, oh, there's got to be something wrong with it. Why wouldn't you go to her funeral? You know, then you become suspicious. I don't know if that was done, but that's a tactic we have used.
I believe they did. We had heard that they placed cameras at where she was buried, and someone was at the funeral as well.
And also at that community.
Yes, at the candlelight vigil that they had.
Well, they also had a community as separate wake type thing. Yeah.
Well, you know, there's just, you guys know so much about this case. This has been a fascinating discussion. And we could probably go on for 3 hours before we hit a wall.
We could.
Well, we can't thank you enough. We can't thank you enough. And I will say one more thing about Missy. As we said that she was a great person and people loved her, she was also very spirited and she wasn't afraid to share her opinion. And I didn't mean to make her sound like a wallflower, because she was not. By all accounts, she was. She stood up for people. She helped people who needed it, and
this is our time to do the same thing for her.
So listen,
right.
as we're coming to the end of this, the one thing I really want you to do, how do people reach out? Is there a website? Is there a number? We know there's a reward. Is the reward still $150,000?
I don't think so anymore, and I'm kind of speculating on that only because the contact that we had for the biggest part of it, the 100,000, hasn't. We haven't communicated with them in a while, so I hate to say that it's still available. We're under the impression that the 50,000 might still be, but nobody's talking about it, which is interesting. So I hesitate to say that. But Crime Stoppers of Ellis County is still a way for people to reach out to turn in tips. There's a couple ways they can do that. They can call 972-937-7297, and that's how they can reach, and it's 937-PAYS. Or they can download the P3 app, and that's P like Paul, 3 like the number, app on their phone. And both of those ways they're going to be able to remain anonymous on those.
And also, if you want to call Midlothian Police directly, Byron Stewart is in charge of this case now. And if you're not shy, I'm sure he would definitely keep you anonymous as well. But if you just want to call directly, I would ask for Byron Stewart if you've got a good tip.
So, ladies and gentlemen in our audience and beyond, Missy Bevers, brutally killed, needlessly, that we can see. There's no need to kill anybody innocent like her. In a terrible fashion, almost 8 years ago in Midlothian, Texas, and the case is still open. We don't know who did it, and justice needs to be found. Justice needs to be earned, found, developed. Whoever did this needs to pay for it, and Missy and her family need to get that. I hate to say closure, but they need to get that peace, that at least that's done. So if you know anything about anything to do with this, the Midlothian Police in Midlothian, Texas, or reach out to True Crime Broads, Crystal and Renee, who have been working alongside them in a cooperative fashion for years now to try to find justice for someone they are from the same area as, and in Renee's case, Renee is correct, you know her, right? Yes. And if you want to learn more about this case, the best place to do that is the True Crime Broads podcast, where Crystal and Renee have done a fantastic job, not just summarizing the case, but keeping the audience up to date on new information, on what they learn, and sharing it, all in an effort to find justice for Missy and her family. And we applaud them for that. We thank you for having the dedication and commitment to do that on behalf of Missy and her family. Every victim deserves that, and you guys are warriors for her, so thank you for that.
Well, thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
having us on. Truly an honor. Thank you.
We really enjoyed it.
We
Thank
love your
you.
show.
And just to piggyback on Dan, you two are two of the most impressive people that I've met, for sure, because you're not cops. You don't have to do this, but you do it out of the respect and love for Missy, and it's wrong. You know, what happened was just wrong, obviously, but your determination and focus on this is really, really impressive. And it was an honor, really, to have you on the show to bring attention to this case and hear it from you about how much you've been doing and what you know and how much passion you have for it. And we're going to be right there with you. All the information that you heard, they're going to stay on after we're done with our show to get all this information that we're going to post when the show comes out, contact information, all that. But like Dan said, True Crime Broads, amazing podcast. Check them out, friend them, follow them, all that good stuff. They're two of the best ladies around, and we're thrilled to have you on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I'm
We
so
appreciate
kind.
it.
Well,
Thank
take us
you.
out, Tom. Another amazing opportunity to talk to people that are just above and beyond, the top tier caliber people. And we're just blessed. We have a great set of guests. And today, Crystal and Renee are just two more exceptional people we've been blessed to meet. And we know the audience is going to love this show. And Tom, what do? We just keep plugging ahead.
We get impressed at the end of every show we do when we have people like Crystal and Renee on, because they're great human beings, and that's what we need. Like we do at the end of our shows, go to youtube.com/@goldshields, hit that subscribe button, hit the follow button, watch great shows like this that are next to none. It's great. We're on every audio platform out there. Spotify, Apple, iHeart, every one of them. Find us. It's really easy. Just search Gold Shields and we'll pop up. But more importantly, like we do every week, pray for our law enforcement officers out there. They need a thank you. They need a pat on the back when they're in the store and a wave on the street. You never know what they're going through during the day, and a wave can change their whole day around. Keep them in your prayers, as well as our members of the military people who follow us and watch our show know how important they are to us. We talk about them all the time. Keep them in your prayers and their families. For another amazing show, for Crystal and Renee, for my partner Dan, this is Tom Smith. Thanks so much for joining us today. True Crime Broads, make sure you hit them up. Thank you again for joining us. Everyone be safe and have a great day, and we'll see everybody soon.